Welcome, 7th graders. This is Mrs. Minowitz, and since I am out on a field trip today, in order for us to get the notes and information on DNA, I recorded this so you can get all the information that you need to without me actually being there. So while you're listening to this, you should have your note sheet out and be filling in the information that you need so that you have the notes on DNA, so you'll have all the information you need. So the first one we're talking about is DNA and what exactly it is. So we've talked about DNA some in class. We know that all living things have DNA. We know that it's found in the nucleus of our cells, but other than that, we haven't really talked too much about what exactly it is. We just know that we need it. So if you look at the first slide I've got up here, you can see pictures of what scientists or artists have taken the information from scientists and turned it in kind of like a picture. If I actually took out the DNA from cells, which you did yesterday, you know it clearly does not look exactly like this and does not have all these different colors. It depends on the different organism. So, what is DNA? And remember, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. So if you look, the D comes from the deoxyribo, and then the N from nucleic, and then the A from acid. So that's how you get DNA. This is a molecule, and it is what makes things different from each other. It contains all the instructions to make each living thing unique. Okay? This is what gets passed from parent to offspring during reproduction. So this is how you end up looking like a mix of your parents. It is from this information called DNA. It is found in the nucleus of the cell, and it is packaged into chromosomes. So when we talk about DNA, we might also say chromosomes, or say that, hey, we have this many chromosomes. That's telling us how much DNA that an organism has or how it's organized. So if you take a look at this next picture here, okay, and you take a look at DNA, and it's kind of zooming in or getting closer, we've got our cell, and inside the cell we have our nucleus, which is where all of our DNA is contained, and then our DNA is organized into chromosomes, okay, which you can see in the picture here, okay, our chromosomes, and then if we were to go in and keep zooming in smaller and smaller, you would see areas that are called genes. We're going to talk about what exactly a gene is. And then we've got some different letters here and this shape that's called a double helix and how our DNA is arranged. So human chromosomes look like if you actually extract them from cells and they are stained to look different colors. This picture shows you kind of what they look like. You have 23 pairs of chromosomes in each of your cells. Okay, ones that you got from your mom and ones that you got from your dad. I want to talk a little bit more about the structure of DNA. The structure of DNA was a huge mystery to scientists for a long period of time. They weren't quite sure how this molecule was able to contain so much information and what it actually looked like based on the information they had. So you're going to actually be watching a video after you're done with this, looking at how did they figure out the shape of DNA, how did they know it was a double helix, and some of the controversies that were associated with that. It was a big, kind of a big cover-up and people stealing people's information. It was fascinating. So DNA is made up of subunits, or little units stacked kind of together, that are called nucleotides. And each one of those nucleotides contains three things. The first one is what's called a phosphate group. The second one is a sugar group. Okay? And the third one is what's called a nitrogen base or a nitrogenous base. And there are four bases that DNA can have or can be. And within the nucleotide, those are adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. They're just different bases that you're able to tell the different nucleotides apart with. And something that scientists had figured out from their research and looking at DNA was that A pairs with T. Across from a nucleotide that has an A is one that has a T. Always, always, always. When there's a nucleotide that's a C, across from it, there is a G, or guanine, nucleotide. And these form together to make this shape that looks like a double helix. Okay, so we've got a phosphate group, a sugar group, and a base, and together that makes up a nucleotide. So I've got a picture of what that looks like on the next page here. Okay. Our DNA subunits, we've got phosphate, that's the orange representation over here. Okay. The deoxyribose sugar, that's why it's called deoxyribonucleic acid, because its sugar is deoxyribose. We've got a phosphate, a sugar, and then a base. Okay. That together, this together is called a nucleotide. Okay. And our nucleotides are bonded together, they're grouped together, so we get a whole string of nucleotides right next to each other. That's what makes up one rung or one side of our ladder, our double helix ladder of DNA. So if you look here on the second diagram, we've got a phosphate, a sugar, and then a base. This base in this situation is adenine, or A. And if we were to draw the other half of the DNA molecule across from an A, we know there's always a T. So we'd have a T across from it, and then you'd have another sugar and phosphate making up the other side of the DNA molecule. Okay? So across from the G, we would have a C, across from the T, an A, across from the C, a G. They always match up with each other. If that doesn't happen correctly, some bad things can happen if that's not the way it's working then. So how does DNA work? What does it do? How does it encode all this information? So basically this order of these bases here, the A, G, T, C that's shown in that picture, or whatever order it is, determines your traits. All of those letters come together and it's like code that tells your body to make proteins. Okay, it tells your body to make proteins. And based on the proteins that your body makes, you are going to look different or be different than someone else. So the order of those bases, okay, all together, okay, your order of all your bases is not the same as someone else. It's not the same between different organisms. It's not the same between different species. That different order is what makes you you. So each of the DNA sequences in there, okay, each part of your DNA that codes for a protein, that tells your body to make a protein, is called a gene. So a gene is just a little piece of DNA, might be bigger, might be smaller, depending on the gene, that tells your body to make a specific protein. And based on all those proteins that get made, okay, that makes you different from someone else. So the key piece of information here that I want you to get is that DNA, okay, tells your body which proteins to make. Okay? DNA tells your body which proteins to make. And based on that information, that's what makes you different. And DNA is really special because it can hold all of that information. So make sure that you get all of the information for your note sheet. And then if you need to go back and relook at something, or if it's not clear, you can rewatch it, or you can ask me in class next week, because I won't see you tomorrow because it's Exploration Day. But make sure you look through that. We will talk about this a little bit more on Monday. Make sure you got your notes for them, and then you can move on to the other two video, or the other video clips that you will need to watch for today. Thanks.